everybody. Welcome back to On the Line with Babsie. We're recording live at soundbox.la in Los Angeles, California. And let's get right to it. Let's eavesdrop on a phone call with my mom, Babsie.
Hello.
Hello. I don't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me, honey?
Oh, no, now I hear you.
Oh, just a minute. I can turn my volume up.
No, don't touch anything.
Oh, don't touch.
Yes.
Okay. How are you, honey?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm all right. How is Tim?
He's fine. What is that? That all right didn't sound all right.
Oh, well, I've been going to physical therapy for an S1 spinal bone near your rear end.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that from using your yoga mat too much on your bed?
No, it's from
Ugh.
age.
Oh.
It's scary.
Oh, don't be scared.
But it's getting better.
Good.
Sort of, yeah. It's just painful.
Oh.
And when I was at the spinal specialist at Johns Hopkins, he said, "Well, Mrs. Haines, where does it hurt?" And I said, "Well, it's in the back." And he took his index finger and he poked me, and I went, "Ow!" And he said, "Is that the spot?" He knew right where it was, and I didn't expect it, and I thought, "Oh, ow!" And of course, he was right.
Where did he poke you? Or can you not say on a family-friendly podcast?
Well, yes, it's sort of near the waist. Just below the waist, there's a bone, and that's the spot. And oh, did that hurt?
How?
And I said, "Oh, Dr. Newman." He said, "I'm sorry." He said, "But I knew where you were talking about."
Wow.
But what was funny was he had a resident working, and the resident, while Dr. Newman went outside, the resident came in and he said, "Well, let me just examine you." I said, "Oh, all right." So I'm on the table, and he took my right leg and he said, "Can you lift it and stretch it?" I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "That's very good." He said, "Well, bend your knee and lift." And he said, "How does that feel?" I said, "Oh, very good." And he said, "Well, let's try crossing it over." I said, "Okay." He said, "How is that?" I said, "Oh, it's fine." Well, he said, "I'm going to let Dr. Newman know, and he'll be in a few minutes." I said, "But what are we going to do about the leg that hurts?" And he said,
You have a third one?
That was your good leg."
Oh.
I said, "Yes, that was my good leg that you were testing." I said,
Oh, no.
"It's my left leg that's bad." He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Uh-oh.
So he said, "Well, I will tell Dr. Newman that it's the left leg." I said, "Yes, please do." And
The other left leg.
yeah, so he was doing my right leg, and my right leg was just fine.
All right, I'll go along with this. Good. Fine. Where are you going?
I thought he was going to do both legs, to compare.
Did you have your gown on backwards or? Have you
No, you
figured
don't
that
have
out?
to. You know what? They save time now, I think, in not having you change into gowns,
Oh, great.
which I'm very happy about.
I'm sure they all are.
But anyway, when Dr. Newman came in, I didn't say a word that his assistant, young doctor, had the wrong leg.
Right. You're just
Because,
saying it now.
oh, oh,
I'm sure no one
oh,
will hear. That's all
oh
right.
dear, I forgot, but I
Their
don't know his
secrets are
name.
safe with our podcast. His name is
That's right.
Dr. Newman's assistant.
Oh, well, I didn't give the date,
That's
so
true.
yeah, I don't know the date. But anyway, he'll remember
2022.
me.
Yeah.
So that was fine. So
Yeah.
Dr. Newman said, well, I would like you to try physical therapy and let's see how it goes from there. And I said, well, am I going to be in a wheelchair? And he said, oh, no, not at all. He said, we have many therapies.
So
And
that
so,
means I have to walk?
yeah. And it's not always easy, but the therapy is going all right. Like going up the stairs. Why, I could hardly do that, but you have to push your rear end out, and then you have to push with your heel on the step, and it's getting better.
Is that your physical therapy routine, or is that how you go upstairs all the time?
My physical therapy routine to get up the stairs.
Huh.
Yes. So it's improving, but it's disappointing, to I never well actually the physical therapist thought that this could be an episode from when I fell and the
Oh.
right leg was bad. So therefore when the right leg was bad, it put more pressure on the left leg. So
Is
now the left
this
leg's complaining.
when you fell at the gas station jump roping with the gas pump?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I never
Oh.
knew this would be happening,
That's
but
right. They'll fix it.
yes, but it could be worse.
Yes, you'll be fine.
So,
Just do your little
yes.
exercises.
Oh, I will. Yes. So, how are you, honey?
I'm good. I was
Oh,
thinking
good.
back to our last podcast where
Yes.
you brought
What?
up Uncle Frank, but I didn't want to continue to interrupt our guest.
Oh, yes.
So we never got into the interesting trivia about Uncle Frank.
Well, Uncle Frank had a heart of gold, but he was a very, very working class New Yorker, a tough guy. And he worked in the marble business. And he actually set the marble and polished it in the Empire State Building, because everybody was from New York. So very early on, actually, the first thing is he went in the Army and he told off all the officers, that were telling him what to do. And he said, I'll do that later. And he said, the bed's fine. He didn't square his corners and everything. And so he was, I can't remember what rank he was. I think he was an E5, which something. But then he was busted they say busted, to, yes, to private, and he had an honorable discharge, but he didn't take orders very well.
No.
So, but he did beautiful marble work, and the two lamps at Diane's and Aunt Lily's house in the bedroom, the black marble, they were done by Uncle Frank,
Right.
and they're timeless.
Huh.
They're just beautiful lamps. Very almost an Art Nouveau, very
Hmm.
very lovely. But anyway, he did the Chrysler Building and banks
And what
and
era was
everything.
this? Because this is my grandmother, your mother's brother.
Brother. Yes, this is in the 30s.
Okay.
Probably he was the eldest. So this is in the 30s, 40s. Yes, yes, those
And
times.
am I remembering correctly that Uncle Frank married a Sally and got a tattoo of her name on his arm or something? And then they divorced and he married another Sally and then another Sally
Yeah.
and then Dottie.
I know that there were two Sallys.
Oh, I thought there were three.
Were there maybe? No, 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 no. There were just two Sallys.
Oh, well, he
Um,
got good
uh,
use out of that tattoo.
right. And then when he went and he liked to gamble on the horses.
Hmm.
So he was at Belmont and he met Aunt Dottie.
Got it.
Probably at the betting cage.
And then when we would visit them in Brooklyn, in
Yes,
Williamsburg, they had the walk up
yes,
near the East River, right? I think it was Kent Street
yes.
ish. Anyway,
I
well,
don't remember.
yeah, well, I think it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when we would visit him, we would go, you, me, David, Nana, and Papa, and dine Aunt
right,
Lily. And
right.
Diane would pick up a fresh pizza box for his cat, Sammy, because Sammy liked to play in pizza boxes.
Oh, really? I didn't remember that. I know she had to
Really?
go to the liquor store to get his whiskey.
Not for the cat, that was for Uncle Frank.
Right,
But
right, yes.
Sammy was a very vicious attack cat, so Uncle Frank had scratches
Yes.
all over himself. But he liked to play rough with him. But
Oh, yes.
he had to put him in the guest room with the pizza box to occupy him while we visited, because he
Oh,
would have attacked us.
well, that's so funny. I never remember the pizza box. That's
Hmm.
good, honey.
I think Ty would
That,
remember. And
well,
also,
that,
we would pick up like groceries and supplies for them. And Uncle Frank
right.
told us that we had to get very specific cat food cans that had a certain
Oh,
barcode number because he said Sammy
oh,
could
yes.
he could read the
Sammy,
barcodes.
he actually knew that that barcode was not did not belong to him if it was the wrong can. That's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
it's
It's
something.
probably the specific food had a specific barcode. So,
Or at least like the ending numbers or something. I don't know.
oh, isn't that something? Yes, but boy, was he a mean cat. Oh,
Yeah.
but I like to rough up little Peanut,
Yeah.
but Peanut isn't as rough as I forgot
Uh,
his name.
Sammy.
Young.
Peanut gets
Oh,
carried away
Sammy. Yeah.
sometimes, but
Yes.
I have to make a
Oh,
fist so I don't poke him in the eye, but I accidentally punched him in the face again.
oh,
He
little
was playing
boy.
rough and he pulled my fist into his chin. He has a little bump.
Oh no! I was gonna say, did you flatten his nose?
No,
Oh, poor little
he's
guy.
okay.
Yes. Well, I don't hear Uncle Steve.
Okay, I guess that's a hint. We'll call him.
Oh, oh,
Just
I
being
thought he
passive
wasn't able.
aggressive. Don't mind me.
Oh no, I didn't know. Well, please call him because but you're gonna have to turn him off because he goes overtime.
Oh, yeah, he has a problem talking too much. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. See ya.
Oh, okay, Tim.
Bye.
Okay,
Answer the phone.
bye.
Bye. That was easy. Oh, God, no wonder she got off so fast.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm here.
I hear
Is
you're
Uncle
here.
Steve?
Almost.
Ah,
Ah.
yes.
Well,
So do I talk to you, Michelle?
you can if you want to.
Well, I mean, are we on the air?
Everything is being recorded. Refreshing. Okay.
Hang up.
Just do what Tim tells you to do.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi, sweetie.
Hey. Okay.
Oh, okay, Tim.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Steve.
Well, hello. That is a familiar voice.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm getting a bit old, you know. You wouldn't know what that's like. No.
Oh,
No, you
yes,
don't.
Oh, yes, I do. My doctor poked me in the back and I went flying across the room. He hit the spot where it hurt. But anyway, that's Michelle.
Are you speaking? I mean, is that literal or metaphorical?
It's hard to tell.
Actually, literal.
Across the,
Well,
your
a quarter
doctor.
of the way.
It's a small
Oh, all
room.
right, okay.
Well, he asked me where it hurt. Sorry, Michelle, we'll be with you in a minute.
I'm right here.
Michelle,
Well,
why now? I don't
Michelle is
understand
there.
the. She
Yeah.
is there. Okay.
You missed the
Well,
whole
is there.
story.
Yeah, that reminds me. When Dr. Gabeline was the headmaster of the Stony Brook School, who was they're, by the way, celebrating their 100th anniversary, the centennial this year.
Oh.
And Dr. Gabeline was a mountaineer. He was the Frank Gabeline. He was the one that basically, he was the first headmaster. His father was Arno C. Gabeline, who was one of the editors of the Schofield Reference Bible. And they formed this school on Long Island. It's on the North Shore of Long Island.
Sure, I know.
The Stony Brook School. It's not the university. The university.
Right.
Well, we were there. My brother Phil and I, they were there when they were building the university across the train tracks from us. But anyway, but Dr. Gabeline was a mountaineer and very strong. And one time, he wanted to I've forgotten whether he wanted to comfort me or congratulate me for some reason. And he just, slapped me on the back. And I went across. I didn't go all the way across the room, but I went across several chairs. And he just, it was his grip was so powerful, and he didn't know his own strength,
Yeah.
And I remember as I got up from the chair that I landed on, he said, "Well, I did not mean to push you across the room." He would speak like that. He had this demeanor that was of the old school. And he was actually very old. He was
Wow.
Yeah, he retired after my freshman year at Stony Brook.
Oh.
And That was your father's, Michelle, that was your father's headmaster. And he was at your wedding, wasn't he, Barbara? He was at the wedding.
Oh.
He was?
Yes, he was at your wedding.
Did he clothesline any of the guests?
He was just a guest at the wedding.
Okay.
I do remember he was there because he said he would not miss David's wedding. And Dr. Halverson was, of course, the minister. That was at the Bethesda, what was it called? Bethesda, Maryland.
First
Presbyterian Church. Yeah, right. Anyway.
My goodness. You know, Steve, now that you mention it, I do remember Dr. Gabelon. Did he, by any chance, was he rather tall?
Well, he was not slight. Put it that way. He was. I don't think he was particularly tall, and he was, of course, quite old at that time.
Yes.
Yes. Michelle's pointing out that he's taller than you, but yeah, I understand. I get the little quip there.
Yes.
But he had tremendous strength and character.
Oh, my goodness.
And and I don't know if he coined the word, but he was the motto of the school is still character before career.
Yeah.
So, that's some anyway. And his son is the one that succeeded him, actually, Don Gabeline, who is now very old, and his wife just died recently.
I'm
He's
sorry.
in his late 80s.
My goodness. It's hard to believe,
Did he throw people around too, or was he not as strong?
No, he had a marvelous Don Gabeline. Now at that time he was not a doctor yet. I think he got an honorary degree later, but at that time we called him Mr. Gabeline, and he was young, and he was and he liked me a lot because he would joke with me and I would joke back. And I would give him the same thing back. He said my brother Phil would kind of just shy away, but with me, he liked the fact that I would just kind of give him back, if he teased me.
Yeah.
But he was not pleased with me towards the end of my time at Stony Brook. Now, you understand, I was on the honor roll almost all the time, but you see that my father this was not good enough. For my father. He couldn't understand why I wasn't first in my class. And Mr. Gabeline was with him on that. He felt that I did not deserve. He felt I didn't deserve to go to Johns Hopkins University. In fact, he said, Larry Potter works harder than you. The problem is Larry Potter's SATs were not as good, and his grades were not as good.
Are you sure he wasn't joking?
He probably
with you?
did deserve to. And it's because he worked, you see, whereas Mr. Gabeline knew that I didn't work very hard. He was, everybody was treating me like a genius, and they thought I could do far better than I did do. And they were right. I cannot argue with that. I had a lot of emotional difficulty, and I remember Mr. Gabeline just upbraiding me. He says, he took me in that, we had a section in Johnston Hall. We had a room called the headmaster's room where he would take people in and upbraid them and the whole lot. It wasn't really his office, but anyway, and he took me in there, and it was a kind of library, and he said, you could do so much better, and all this. He was, I won the declamation contest 3 years in a row. And the first time, I only won it twice, sorry. The first time I went to the declaration contest, I did Robert Frost's poem about, now I can't remember the title, but anyway, about a couple who lose their child. And at the end of it's a very emotional, very marvelous poem. And the end, he's talking about the graveyard of their child that's up on the hill. And he said, if you, and I think the last sentence is something like that. If you go there, I'm going to come and get you in. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to come and get. And I held out my hand. He says, I will. And my hand was shaking. And so I was disqualified because this was in my sophomore year. I was disqualified because the rules of the declamation contest, according to the judges they brought in from New York City, the rules were that it was supposed to be interpretive reading, not dramatics. It was supposed to be interpretive reading. And so when I lost that, the school they were really outraged because everyone, the faculty especially, thought I should have won the declamation contest. So the next year they brought in judges. They had their own judges locally, the part of the faculty and all that. I don't remember who, and but they were just outraged. I remember Chris, my roommate, one time, a really annoying person. I won't say his name anyway. He won the contest that year, and then the next year I did sections from "Cry the Beloved Country" by Alan Payton, and where a man is encountering his son in prison, a black man, Kumalo, and it was very, very. I had nearly a standing ovation. They didn't do that. They didn't do standing ovations in those days in Stony Brook. They're a very reserved school, but I of course won that year. And the final year, I did what my father wanted Phil to do. He wanted my brother Phil to do the soliloquies of Judas from the Passion play of Oberammergau. And and I did them. I did these 3 soliloquies, and I won overwhelmingly. But in between my last year there, I was considered to be the best. I don't know if I told you this story before, but I was considered to be, the overwhelmingly best actor in the school. And my classmate, David Hicks, wanted to start a theater group, which, by the way, they still have now. Anyway, a theater group, and he got me to do Stalag. It was called Stalag 13 or Stalag 17. Anyway, it's the Hogan's. Out of the play came that Hogan's Heroes series on television. But anyway, the play, he wanted me to do Sergeant Schultz in that. And I did that. And, of course, I did a very good job. I was a horrible Nazi and very kind of cynical and that. It was not terribly, it was not a comedy at that time. Anyway, then we had the oratorical contest. And I was to write, you were to write your own speech. And the rules were that you were to submit within a couple weeks. You would submit your speech that you had written to a committee, and they would approve the speech. And then you would even have a practice term and all that. Well, they waived all that for me. You see. Big mistake.
Oops.
I wasn't a trained actor at the time. And so I didn't know about things like whiteout and all this, that happens when you're first time on stage with a new piece, and all that. I didn't know about all these things. Anyway, I wrote my speech. I finally finished it around 8 or 9 o'clock the night before the oratorical contest, and then I started memorizing it. And see, I was given a lot of latitude because I was, considered to be also to be very you're respectful of everybody and all that. I remember I was in this room, this special room that I was allowed to use, and I was memorizing all night long, memorizing. And the moment of the oratorical contest, and it was my turn to get up. And I got up, and if you're an actor, you know what whiteout is. In other words, your first time on stage, often it's during a first rehearsal or something like that. You forget your lines.
Uh-oh.
And I remember getting up there and saying the very first line. It was a wonderful speech. It was a speech that said everything about my faith and my belief and, you know, how with God's help, you know, you could change the world and all this. And I said my first line, I said it magnificently. And I stopped dead in my tracks.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
And my hand was held out, and I did nothing for a long minute until the prompter, who was allowed, realized that he should whisper the next line. And he did. So I gave, you know, the next line as well as I could, as a great line, and I stopped. And I held my position until the prompter realized the next line I did not know either. And so he gave me the next line, and I said it, and I'll tell you this, it went on this way until probably the most humiliating thing was when I saw my best friend John and John Crozier kind of snickering, you know, because he and Mike were snickering at each other, and they I didn't know why, you know, but I kept it up for almost the required 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You see? And then finally I just gave up and left the stage. And Mr. Gabeline, after that speech, took me aside into the headmaster's room.
Into the boxing room.
Well, no, it was the headmaster. It was a nice library, beautiful library there in Johnston Hall there. It was across from the kitchen, you know, not the kitchen, the dining room. It was near the dining room. And all that's changed, by the way. I think they rebuilt. Anyway, he took me into that room and he said, Stephen, he said, were you trying a new technique?
Yeah.
Or didn't you know your lines?
New technique.
He just wasn't sure.
Good.
Yeah.
And I said, Mr. Gabeline, I didn't know my line. And I told him I'd finished the speech last night, and I tried to memorize it all night long, and I just didn't know my line. And that to me was a kind of, I mean, it was an extremely humiliating experience. But that question on his part was to me a kind of unusual kind of, what do you call it, counter victory, you know, just the fact that I was able to hold myself and make people believe. You understand, these people all knew me well. I mean, this was the whole school. The whole school was there, you know. Anyway, I did not win. I did not win the oratorical contest.
Very close.
And people quickly forgot about it.
Good.
And then I won the declamation contest towards the end of that year, and I did very well.
Good.
Well, Steve, what was the name of the soliloquy that you did from the Oberammergau Passion Play?
I think it was the soliloquies of Judas, you know, where he, Judas,
Judge
where,
Judy.
you know, he's first, I mean, this, you understand, I haven't looked at it for, what is it, 55, 56 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Almost, it was 1966 when I did that, you know. So, but the first soliloquy is when he's trying to think, you know, he thinks about, you know, Jesus and what this is coming to, and how Jesus is being, everybody is now starting to turn against Jesus. Here he just came in. He came into the city on an ass, you know, on a donkey. You know, I mean, an ass is a donkey, you know, and he came in on there, and everybody, they had Palm Sunday. They were praising him and all this. But now, of course, the leaders of the church have turned against him, and he's trying to think, and he's tortured by his faith, by his losing his faith. You know, he hoped that Jesus was going to become that great, liberator who was going to get rid of the Romans and all this. And he's going through this whole thing. I mean, I don't remember, I don't remember the speech, of course. But anyway, he's wrestling with his soul. And now the leaders have offered him, the Jews. Unfortunately, in the Bible, the translators, and that some of these translations came when the Jewish Christians were opposed to the non-Jewish Christians. So in the New Testament, where it says the Jews did this and that, it was his own people, that did this and that. And a lot of this goes back to St. John Chrysostom, what they called the Golden Mouth, who was he was battling the Christian Jews in a question of power over the church. And this is where a lot of the Catholic feeling against the Jews began, but it was later. It was when the Bible was being consolidated, when the New Testament was being consolidated. And in later centuries, it got worse, because the Jewish Christians had a different feeling about how they should practice the Christianity. They thought that Jesus had said that he was going to, fulfill the prophets, that he came not to destroy, but to fulfill the prophets. And so the Jewish Christians wanted to follow the rules of Judaism, whereas the non-Jewish, the non-Jewish Christians felt that Jesus came to completely destroy, to overturn the Jewish tradition. And so when they had that conflict, the non-Jews basically won. You see, basically, I mean, Paul was Jewish, and all. But it was the later Christians who changed that. I'm sorry, I'm getting into something that you're not interested in. But
I just wondered what soliloquy it was, because my friend went to the Passion play in 2000, and when we were stationed in Germany, we didn't get a chance to go because it's every 10 years. So,
in fact, they probably had a scaled down version in 2000, because how the Passion play began. Oberammergau was one of the few places where the plague did not kill so many people. And this is in the 14th century, I think. I don't know. There were several instances of the plague. I mean, the plague was a pandemic. It was a pandemic of that day. Some people estimate that in 1348, 1349, that half of the French population was killed, died. And but they had other instances. Of course, they always blamed it on people coming from ships, and it did come probably from ships that sailed into Marseille, and then into the ports from the east, and people in the east were more immune to it. But you had these terrible times, and Oberammergau was a village that wanted to thank God for its being saved from the plague. And so they started to put on this Passion play, you see. And we went to it in 1960 with my great uncle. We went and we were there. It was a day long. It took 12 hours for the whole play, you see.
Well, actually, in 2000, it was 2 days.
Oh. Was it really? That could be because of the health restrictions. You say they were very worried about this new plague. But my brother knows more of the history of this. My brother will tell you that finally someone came in, snuck into the city because they had closed the gates, snuck in and brought the plague into Oberammergau. And because somebody snuck in and was infected and started infecting the population. But for a long time they were spared. And when my great uncle and I went there, my father, I remember, stayed up all night long to try to get us tickets. We didn't have tickets. We only had 3 tickets, I think, to begin with, and he brought the whole family. In 1960. Marvelous thing. Anyway, in the second soliloquy, Judas has, I've forgotten whether it's before or after he's actually gone he finally goes to the Jewish leaders, to the head of the Sanhedrin, and he gives them that, and he wants to be paid, and all that. And finally, in the last soliloquy, he goes crazy. These 30 pieces of gold are killing him, He's lost his soul. He's betrayed the greatest, the savior of the world. And he wants to throw himself in a pit, you see. And so anyways, the 3 soliloquies of Judas are very powerful.
I see.
Well, if you ever want
to...
sorry about that. Babsie?
Oh, no, I was going to say what is powerful is today's Michelle's father's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. He would be 79 today.
I know.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, Uncle Steve, if you ever want to recite this again, Mom and I would be happy to whisper the lines to you.
Well, that's not. Yeah, the soliloquies of Judas I did very well.
Oh,
it was
good.
only my speech. I have no idea if I still have it.
Oh.
It may be somewhere in my papers, that speech that I wrote that night.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's all scribbled out. It was we didn't type things. I hadn't learned to type at that time in Stony Brook, and so it was all written out. And but that's cute. I do want to tell you something about your father.
Oh, please do.
I'm sorry. If you're ready for this.
We're ready.
Now, your father was born, you know that your father was born during the Second World War, you see.
Yeah.
And so he was born in 1943. This is a time, in fact, my brother and I are watching this marvelous series from France, which my sister-in-law got us, about a French village during that time of war, and all the people, some people are collaborating, some people are being very courageous and saving others and all that, and so. But anyway, it's terribly intertwined, terribly, very, very, very wrenching turns of events, But anyway, in 1943, your father was born February. And I have letters. I told you this before. Stop me, Michelle, if I've already said this before. I have letters from your grandfather to my mother, to Mana. You called her Mana. Written when she was obviously pregnant with your father. Mm-hmm. These letters, your father and I found in his cottage some time ago, and we started reading them together. At first, I said, "Oh, David, don't worry about that." And then I actually opened the box, and we started reading them, and they are marvelous. They are really interesting.
Yeah.
They're sort of like peeking into the private life of my parents, who were very, in their own words, they were very eccentric.
Yeah.
Well,
and you know how my mother would always say that, he will go up and he'll hug and kiss his aunts and uncles and his cousins and all this, but, he never would show me he would never show me any
affection.
Now the word's failing me. Affection, thank you, in public. Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to need you as I get older.
You're welcome.
Good
you
luck.
would never show affection to me in public. And in one of the letters, he writes, now, of course, I don't have her letters to him because he didn't have time to say these things, but I have his letters to her because my mother saved a lot of things. I mean, not everything, she saved a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, in his letters to her, he says, Francis, I cannot understand why you, would want to make what is private between you and me public. And I knew when I read those sentences, I'm paraphrasing them. I'm not reading them. I mean, the letters are right over there in my room. I've got them right near me, but I'm not going to take time to do them.
Right.
Anyway, I knew exactly what he was talking about and what she had written to him. Why can't you just show me a little bit of, what was the word you said? Of affection, in public.
Yeah.
They were like that. They were odd. The other odd thing about it, other really odd thing about it, what do you do when you're pregnant and your husband's an evangelist? And, of course, my father was an evangelist. He had meetings all over the country, and he was constantly away on trips and all that. What do you do when your husband's not with you and you're pregnant and you're getting close to term, and all that? Usually a woman is with her parents, isn't she?
Sure.
Usually.
Well, I would be.
Yeah.
The letters are all addressed to Sedalia, Missouri, in care of Erwin Rout. My mother was staying with her husband's uncle and aunt who had raised him but had never had children of their own. I find that very interesting.
Well, it sounds like they have rooms
but I don't
available.
know why she would go there.
Because she wanted to get to know. Actually, I don't know. It was probably a joint decision. My mother was very devoted to my father. You may have overheard her complaining, because she used to always love to say that the only person who could possibly live with him was her. She loved to say that to people, But she was very devoted to him. And she believed that the Lord had put them together. I mean, I've told you about that story of why she was convinced that the Lord, when he wrote that little line on this letter while she was going with his roommate, she was courted by his roommate for 11 years, And at the end of one of the letters, he wrote, "I hope I meet someone like you someday, Wallace E. Haines."
Then she said, "Okay."
That's the first letter she pulled out. You know that story.
I do now.
Anyway, the interesting thing is that she was with them. Now, I want to tell you about another letter. Another letter that he wrote, I think in December. He wrote, "Francis, it would be far more convenient if you would have the baby towards the end of February and not the beginning, because my schedule is too full. And so if you would just please have the baby at the end of February, that would be far more convenient."
Oh,
pass me a cork.
My brother and I read that, and we thought that was hilarious. Now, how they ended up in Chicago, I don't know. I don't know why they actually were in Chicago when your father was born, Michelle. But and he used to always lament. My mother loved to tell stories. You know that. She loved to tell stories. And she would say, "Yes, he was born in a women's hospital." Oh, your father thought it's such discredit being born in a women's hospital. Don't say that, Mother. What do you expect? You don't expect her to be in a men's hospital.
Well, maybe that had to do with her dressing him up in a dress in the beginning.
Did
Just
she?
the
Well, they
combination
did
of
that
the two.
in those days.
Yeah.
They did that. Her brothers were. There are pictures of her brothers in dresses.
They look
They would
very
do
nice.
that, but I didn't know about that. I don't remember her saying how she would put him in a dress, but.
Oh,
But he was in.
very incensed by that.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
I don't remember that at all. We have those pictures of him in that suit that I think each of us wore when they went to Olin Mills and they took pictures of us. And I still have the suit. I found it,
Oh, wow.
You
I found
did?
it.
Oh,
It's not blue anymore, but anyway.
I guess
Yeah.
not.
Save that.
Yeah, I found it.
Wow.
Yes.
I have it in the cottage. It still exists. But
Oh.
Goodness.
the other thing I wanted to tell you about him is he was born during the war, and at one point, this became my mother's favorite blanket. It was a magnificent woolen blanket made, I think, in Eaton Rapids, Michigan, because they made blankets at Woolen Mills here. And you can see that it's been cut by scissors all over. And when my mother, at the end of her days, when she was living with me, she had to have that blanket on her because it reminded her of her little boy, David.
Oh.
And this is why. They caught him cutting with scissors this thing. This thing. And this is, at this point, evidently Mother was with her parents, and Grandfather took the scissors away from him. And he says, where are my scissors? My scissors. He used to call them my scissors. And Grandfather says, well, you can have your scissors after the war, when the war's over, And and evidently your father didn't forget this. He was a very active child, so getting into trouble was getting into trouble was a bit his forte, his strength. And so my grandfather took the scissors away, and then the war. There was he heard somehow from somebody that the war's over. Oh, the war's over today. And so he said, where are my scissors? Where are my scissors? Where are my scissors? My grandfather loved to tell that story. My grandfather just loved that story. He would say, David went around saying, where are my scissors? Where are my scissors? I get my scissors now.
Great.
So evidently they found some plastic scissors, and they gave him some plastic scissors then.
Oh, but that wouldn't do, I'm sure. But now,
well, I don't know. I think they gave him plastic. I don't know if they had them in those days, but I think they did. My mother said that he had to be satisfied, but they didn't want to give him real scissors anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, he was only 2 years old then.
Here, have matches instead.
2.5.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But I still have that blanket, and I do want Michelle to have that blanket. That blanket that my mother treasured, she just treasured that because she said, and I want the part that's cut. She said, I want that right near me, up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to it was very hard to make her bed because Mother became quite obsessive. Of course, she was in bed most of the time towards the end of her life, And so I had to make her bed just so, and it had to be tucked in just so, and that blanket had to be on top. And
well, I guess. I heard.
One time she looked at me. She said, she looked at me. I had just brought her teeth back because I would always have this routine of taking her teeth, and washing them, putting them in a little. I still have her teeth. In fact, I still have them.
Really?
Anyway, I put them in I put them in a glass or something, and then I'd put that. What is that called? That there's a material. I can't remember what it's called. Powder that you put it in and you clean your teeth.
Formaldehyde.
No, nothing. No. Barbara, no.
That's for dead animals.
Funny, but no, it wasn't that. It's called something starts with a P that older people use on their removable teeth.
Maybe.
Sure.
Well, polydent you use to place them back in. That was an adhesive.
Imagine.
But this was called something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I brought her teeth back one night, and she looked at me. And she said, "I think you enjoy taking care of me." And I didn't want to say, "Yes, Mother, I enjoy it." I didn't want it because my mother was a very powerful human being.
Yeah.
I remember I just said, well, as long as we're on schedule, yes. as long as we can do it because Mother, she'd often hit me with things that I, had to do, and I said, as long as we can do it, in an organized, I can't remember the term I used anyway.
Yeah.
And then I do. But I remember her saying that, I think you enjoy taking care of me. Yes, I did enjoy taking care of her.
Yeah.
Sure.
I loved
good.
it.
Aw.
My great uncle, my great uncle told me that one time he scolded me in a letter. He said, "Your purpose in life is to study hard, keep to your studies, and take care of your mother in her old age." Well, I did that part, the second part.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Well,
he was wonderful.
This has nothing to do with anything, but Uncle Steve, do you still carry around your pickpocket pouch? Or did you only do that in the cities like D.C.?
Oh, you mean my special thing? I did that when I went to Miami for Nathan's wedding. This is the first time. Oh, maybe I haven't told you this.
Yeah.
Back I did call your brother he called me while I was in the hotel. I just got in the hotel. This is on the 3rd of December. Nathan had his reception, wedding reception. He had a civil wedding, so I didn't actually go to the wedding, but I went there it was on a Saturday. Is that the 3rd of December? I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway, for his reception. And it was the first time I had ever been more than 9 miles south of the place where I was born, anywhere in the world for that matter.
Oh.
Because as you know, Rome... What?
Where were you born?
I was born near Tampa, Florida. I was born in a city called Dade City, and I got the doctor out of church, according to my mother, because I was born at 12:45. So the doctor had to leave church, and and Dade City was about 9 miles north of where we lived at that time, which was Zephyr Hills, Florida. And the reason for living in Florida was my father at that time. He was booked as an evangelist for a year in advance across the country, and he had to be away so often that he thought that it would be good to have my mother's parents to buy a house down in Florida, which he did, and have my grandparents come down and take care of my mother and the 2 children. Phil was a year and a half at that time. And of course, you know the story about Phil. He hates it when I tell this, but all I have to do is tell your Uncle Phil. I have to say, yeah, your grandmother was right, and he knows what I mean.
I don't know.
He was so cute as a 1.5 years old. He was so cute. I think my grandparents rather goaded him because they loved his reaction. They told him at one point, they said, "Well, you're not going to be the baby anymore." And he did not like that. You see? And then they said to him, "Well, shall we bring the baby home?" And he said, no. And the way he said it was so cute. My mother used to love to tell the story, know. So I bring the baby home. He said, no.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it's hard having 3 children because you're in competition or something. I don't know. But,
well, Mother didn't like Florida. When I was 3, my father sold the house there and bought a house in East Lansing because Mother did not like Florida at all. She really didn't.
Why not?
Yeah.
Tornado, hurricanes.
Anyway, when I went down to Nathan's wedding reception, which was in this December, it's his second marriage. Anyway, that was the first time I was south of there.
Yeah.
In my life.
Okay.
You know that Rome is on the latitude of New York. Paris is on the same latitude as the Labrador. You know, your favorite place.
Well, now that I look back, I don't have any regrets about being in Labrador.
30 years
I
to
know,
get
dear.
over
I
it.
just said that as a joke. I know. I just said that as a joke, though. I mean, just Europe, Western Europe is much higher up in latitude than the United States. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And so the furthest south I was in Europe was in Naples and Herculaneum, and Pompeii, and I think that's the furthest south we got. And so I had never been south of the place I was born.
Interesting.
Well, I have to tell you that David, your brother and your nephew, is at his first day at his new job at Land Rover.
Does he want
Yes, he told me. He called me last night. Was it last night or the night before? Anyway, he called me. He told me. He said he asked to be started on his father's birthday. I thought that was very nice.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the night before last.
Monday. But if anyone would like a Land Rover,
I've got to call and order one right now.
Yeah.
I've got to order one.
Oh, yeah.
But the trouble is, my $1 million hasn't arrived yet. My publisher's clearinghouse hasn't arrived yet. So,
yeah.
Can I do it on the understanding that I am promised that I'm probably already a winner from Publishers Clearinghouse.
I'm sure he can pull some strings.
No doubt about it. All I have to do is buy a lot of product and send in my notice and.
Well, speaking of winning things, I had to change pharmacies. And this particular pharmacy keeps calling me to say you are a lucky winner of a package of Viagra. And I keep hanging up on them.
Well, some women do take Viagra. Some women do take Viagra.
Yeah, at a
my
rate.
brother. I'm just saying that my brother does prescribe it for some women. There is a side effect that is that I don't know the reason, but some women do take Viagra. Yeah.
Oh well, that's very nice, but I
drop it in your iced tea.
Now, that reminds me of what Beth Crozier told me one time. One time she was Beth Crozier was mocking all the emails she would get from the spam mails. And she said, I've had to tell them, she says, unfortunately, I do not have I'm afraid to say it because I know you're recording this, but, one of those things that men have that women
sure
do not.
Yes, so you got
anyway,
no, I don't know that you're talking about
Crozier,
say it anyway.
Are you serious, Mom?
But Beth Crozier she was rather open about it. She thought it was very funny. People offering her to enlarge her, what?
Yes, you get it. Wow.
No, I don't know what you're talking about,
that's
but
all
that's
right.
okay.
You'll
I usually
figure it out
don't,
later.
so keep it quiet, yes. But anyway...
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I mean, this is you're recording this, and I don't want Michelle to be... be hampered with too many bleeps,
If one person doesn't get it, I think we'll be all right. And Mom can go on living. She'll be fine.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Wow.
So that's
all right.
fine.
Yes.
We'll spell it to you later.
I applaud your innocence.
Yeah.
I applaud your innocence, and I decry your daughter's understanding. No, I'm kidding you, Michelle. You know I'm kidding.
It's
anyway.
a wonder that I was even born.
He understands more than I do, but that's all right. Your father
dear, I do.
Well,
dear, I do not mean that. I don't want you to take that to be mean at all.
It's a compliment.
I'm just trying to tease.
I don't even know what you're talking about now. So it's fine.
Do you know? I have to tell you. Actually, when after Michelle, I want to tell you this. after Michèle called me and told me she wanted to do a podcast with her mom, and by the way, Michèle, it's with Mom and me, not Mom and I.
Oh, what
Take
is
away
my
the
problem?
first thing.
Yes.
Yeah, remember, Michèle, I want you to speak English the way it was the way it was published in the American College Handbook, 1960 edition. You see, so
because and I do know this because if you drop the it, I would like to have a podcast with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
yeah.
I.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Wow.
That's what they used to tell us to do. Yeah, in the American College Handbook, 1960.
Yeah.
You know why it went the other way, Michèle. I see. I remember those days. It's because parents would react to children coming home and saying, "Me and so did this," you know, or the language was there, and so children of not my generation, but the generation after me got very self-conscious about that and started using I more than me, you see. Because they thought you always use I, you never use me, you see. And so it got kind of reversed and the error is reversed.
Well, that was the first sign of the apocalypse.
You know that the language changes anyway. And the problem is that I'm trying to resist the change of language. Till the end of my days, you know, and I'm not going to succeed.
I'll try to help you resist more.
I'm not using.
Well, all of this came out of me asking about your pickpocket pouch.
Oh, that's right. You mean my oh, this is how I got to Miami. Yeah, I last wore my money belt and a fake wallet. When I went down to Miami, because again, it's a territory where I know a lot of.
So it's just to describe it. It's a little leather pouch with a long string, so people can come up and pull it out of your pocket.
No! I used to have a teens purse that had it looked like one of those little bourse, they called them in France. Those little pockets, they were made of leather. I used to have it. I haven't had that for years because when it wore out, I never could find a replacement for it. But my pickpocket prevention thing is to have a kind of wallet with maybe a little bit of money so that they're not too mad at you, you know. But not have any identifying things.
I see. But the pouch was the opposite, where you were encouraging people to take that out of your pocket, right?
No, dear, that was just a change purse. It was just a change purse, and I used it. You probably remember that. I right now I don't carry change. I hate carrying change because it's dirty, and I pay everything by credit card now. I have become modernized in that sense. My brother's different. My brother Phil thinks differently. He thinks that you should carry money just to be able to give people money if they hold you up. But you know, on the other hand, we don't get held up too much in Eaton Rapids.
Yeah.
There is crime around here, but it's rather. Yeah. Yeah.
I keep my change in a Lebkuchen can.
Oh.
What's that?
A cookie can.
Don't tell everyone now this. I do want to tell you. There's another thing I wanted to tell you. Oh, now I'm forgetting. Yeah, I want. Anyway. I wanted to tell you about Voltaire. When you told me you wanted to start this discourse, this podcast with your mother and me. Notice I said with your mother and me.
I did. I noted
Nathan caught me in that era once, by the way. Anyway, when you told me about this, I had to immediately, go and take care of business. Business that some old men have to do the first thing when they get up, you see.
Sure.
And it reminded me of Voltaire. Voltaire was a great French, he's a quasi-philosopher, but he's a great writer and satirist, and he was a member of the philosophical dictionary that came out in the 18th century and all that. And Voltaire used to say that the most humiliating thing that a human being has to do is to sit on the chamber pot, you see. And of course, his was probably elegant, because he had problems. But anyway.
I think you mentioned this in a previous episode. I think you mentioned this in a previous episode, which you
I did.
explained to Mom and me.
Yes. Well.
Yes.
Practicing.
Voltaire believed that he said that there are certain humiliations other than death. He said one was there. You know that he was very famous for what he said to the regent at the time. No. Regent had put him in the Bastille, in the prison there in Paris, for having criticized the government. And he was there and that. And then when he got out, he had a great success with one of his plays. And the regent this is Philippe of Orleans. He was the nephew of Louis XIV. And he had to be regent because the king at the time was a little boy. He was the great-grandson of Louis XIV, Louis XV. And anyway, the regent had put him in prison for a while, and when he attended the performance of the play, Voltaire reached him, and the regent offered him a subsidy, for pension, and all that. And he said, well, he says, I would much rather, be rewarded as you are doing, Your Highness, rather than to be nourished by you in jail. Something like that. He said it's better than I.
Well, sometimes
Voltaire had to try to find places to live that were near the border, because often he said what was not very popular. He would criticize the government, you see, and he'd write satires about the government. So his final resting place is at Ferney, which was in Franche-Comté, and I'm not even sure it was part of France at the time, but it was right near the Swiss border, so he could quickly get across the mountains and get out of France. And there was, and of course, that with the King of Prussia, the great Frederick the Great, who had a great opinion of Voltaire. He brought him to Berlin, and had him and elevated him. They didn't get along very well. Two very powerful personalities don't always get along that well.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, the king still wrote him and asked him to translate various pieces that he would read in the papers and all. He still asked him to do translations for him till the end of his days.
Yeah.
I mean, Voltaire.
Wow.
Voltaire was. That was not his name, that was his pen name. His name was François-Marie Arouet. François-Marie Arouet.
Yeah, Voltaire's
Your brother's
easier.
pen name was Big Pumpkin.
Okay.
And we were at times very close and explosive.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Dad and chambers, since you brought it up, when Dad was in the hospital, one of his corpsmen, Leah Mon, would be his protector, and he would say nobody gets past the Mon. And so there was a day when Mom came to visit. I was there, and Leah was there, and another corpsman, Tim. And we were in Dad's room, and Dad had forgotten that you already knew who she was. And he said, "Oh, Barbara, have you met the Mon? Have you met the Mon?" And Mom said, "Yes. In fact, Leah, Tim, and I were in the shower together."
We were in the...
In the shower.
I didn't get the. We were in the what was the word you said?
In the shower together.
Oh.
Mom was trying to
Yes.
say that she and Leah and Tim were helping Dad in the shower get bathed, but the way it comes out when Mom
Yes.
says things.
Oh, I didn't think anything of it because you walk into the bath area and it's a huge room and a large part of it is the shower. So the three of us were in there together, and I didn't realize, and sometimes I don't realize what I might say could be taken in a different way. So yes, we had met in the shower, helping Dad. Yes.
I like your original wording a lot better, and I think the whole floor did, actually.
Oh, what did I say? I don't remember.
I just said it.
Oh, we met in the shower?
Yes. No, Tim, Leah, and I were in the shower together.
Well, when you say it that way, it seems a little odd.
Nah,
Yes.
not at all.
Yes. But anyway, yes. I've forgotten these things. And
Yeah.
Well, sometimes the mistakes we make are funny,
Yes,
and,
sometimes.
and they add to the spice of life.
They sure do.
yeah, they're also very embarrassing sometimes because I
remember.
Huh?
Go ahead,
well,
Laura.
we were at West Point at one of the reunions, and General Westmoreland was a guest. Well, the class of '66 was very excited to have him because he was the superintendent at the time that your brother was up there.
Yeah, I met him while my brother was there.
You did,
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Mhm.
there were about 6 classmates with your father and me. And they said, "Oh, sir, would you please take a picture with us?" And he said, "Of course." So, and I was the only wife there. And, they're all talking and everything, and I didn't say anything. And they said, "Oh, Mrs. Haines, of course, you too." So they squashed me in. And, well, that wasn't the only thing, but they put me in with them. And then the person taking the picture said, "Fellas, move in a little closer." And they moved in close, and when I saw the picture, I disappeared to the back with my legs hanging out among all the trousers.
Okay.
There were 2 extra bare legs among about 12 trousered legs. And I said, when I show the picture, which I don't know where it is, I said, "Those are my legs." You can't see me.
You're like a
You can't
Christmas
see-
story.
Yeah, I don't know that. I haven't watched that movie in its
It's that-
entirety. I keep turning it off.
The leg
But
lampshade, that's all you have to know.
Oh, the lamp. Oh. Well, anyway, they were so excited. They forgot and pushed me out. But I said, "Those are my legs, and those are my green suede shoes." But they were.
But
so
Michelle,
fun.
what is the movie you mentioned just now?
Oh, it's the Christmas story where they.
Oh yes, that's very famous. Gene Shepard wrote that, and Gene Shepard, and he had the lamp that was in the woman's leg. Yeah, that was
Right.
very famous years ago. They still show that, don't they?
Yeah, I think so.
They show it all the time, and I can't get used to it. I find it not that funny, but I have to tell you, it is cute, but I like the real Christmas stories. Anyway, when we first moved here, we had arrived at sort of dusk, which became nighttime. The people that
Like it always
lived directly next to us in the next cluster put a lamp on in the front window of this woman's leg. And I said to your father, I said, look at what's in the window. And he said, oh my gosh. And I said, what do you think's going on in
Jeffrey
there?
Dahmer.
And he said, well, it could be a brothel. And I said, oh my goodness, David, we didn't check this area first. He said, well, just stay away from them. We don't know who lives next door. So it was the lamp in the window, and I had no idea about the movie. And so I told my cousin Diane, I said, Diane, I'm really concerned about the people that we've moved next to. And I said, you're not going to believe this. There's a lamp in the window every night with a woman's leg and a lampshade. And she said, oh, my goodness, that's Susie's favorite movie, The Christmas Story.
Oh, she
and
is
I
sick.
said, oh, David thought it was a brothel. And she said, oh, no, it's a funny movie about Christmas. And then I thought, oh, okay, but I didn't like them anyway.
Okay, good.
So
No, I remember the movie. The movie has the little boy wants for Christmas a BB gun. What was it called? A red something BB gun.
Oh.
And I actually saw one last fall when a woodpecker started to peck on my house.
Oh.
And I went to a hardware store, and somebody told me, my brother, don't tell his wife. My Lord, she'd be upset if she heard this.
Don't let
But
her
anyway,
listen
my brother
to
said,
this.
well, you got to get a BB gun and get rid of that woodpecker.
Oh, no.
And so I went to a hardware store, and here, what do you know, but what they had the very same, I can't remember what it's called, red something BB gun. And I said, well, that's from that movie.
Well,
I couldn't buy it anyway. I mean, you know what the heck? I'd have a house full of bullet holes without hitting the woodpecker anyway. So you know, I decided that. Luckily, somebody told me, well, you know, the woodpecker's eating bugs that are in your house. It's really the bugs and so he's actually doing you a favor.
Yeah, they eat termites, I think.
It's actually the bugs that are eating up your house.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it was funny, and when I told your father and your brother, Stephen, he said, a movie with a leg on a lamp? He said, I don't think I'll watch it. So,
but David had a very strange sense. David did not like Seinfeld, you know, because it had so many illusions. But the masterpiece of Seinfeld was that they would be able to talk about an entire subject from an entire episode and not mention what the subject was.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous form of art.
And Mom would never know.
Well, it's a genius script. I mean, and it's so typical of New York. I can relate to almost everything. And you know, the soup Nazi is a real man. His store was in David's building, his soup, and I thought, I'm going to meet the soup Nazi, and I went in, and it was a little blonde girl. She said, can I help you? I said, oh, no, thank you. But
no soup for you.
So is that the store where they filmed the soup Nazi episode? Is that what you meant by it?
No, there were other locations in the city, but one of the locations was in David's building. But the entrance was from the outside. But the soup Nazi is a real gentleman. And, most of the
Gentlemen.
things that they take, when Susan's parents are going for a ride, and Kramer had said he went to a store and overbought beefaroni, so he gave it to the horse, and it didn't agree with the horse, and they just had to get out of the carriage. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and sometimes it reminds me of Uncle Frank, because he said, hey, Colonel. My father was a colonel, and he'd say, hey, Colonel, how's the army treating ya? But you can identify with a lot of things in New York City, if you're aware of them. But most of the things taken from there are from, real things that happen. And it's a brilliant piece, and it'll probably run forever.
Well, it could. It was wonderful.
It's taken up a lot of time, though.
Yeah. Well,
Nathan and I used to watch it 2 or 3 times a day. He'd come up, and I'd be working in my office, and he'd say, "Hey, the Seinfeld's on." So we'd go down and we'd watch it. And
Oh yes, I try to find any episode I can, because it's just and when Bette Midler was on, and Kramer was taking care of us about she wanted pineapple Italian ice. Well, I always wanted a lemon ice, and Diane used to take me to a place called the Shack for lemon ice, and we would walk up to Bayside. This is Queens, New York. And she said, "Barbara, would you like some lemon ice?" And I said, "Oh, yes." Well, all those years, I thought she was just being nice to me. She wanted to see the fella that owned the Shack.
I'm sure it was both.
So she said, "Babs, you were always such a good excuse to take to the Shack so I could see him." And I thought, "Oh, that's okay. I got my lemon ice. I was happy."
You used me.
This is Diane that you said.
Seinfeld episode, but anyway. But we should let everyone go. I think we're over time.
All right.
My.
Well, we'll wrap this up.
Next time you can ask me about the eternal running to school. We were always late. Oh, my Lord.
No.
That's one thing about the Haines. Now, I am early. David is early. Dad was always late, and I think my little girl is somewhat like her father in some things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you're late all the time, Honey Bunch.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Honey Bunch sees. Yeah, Honey Bunch knows what you're talking about, and Honey Bunch sees through it, and Honey Bunch knows you love her anyway.
Yeah,
so.
She does her best.
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of Honey Bunch. I'm now being her solicitor or her barrister, whichever that is, whichever you wish to call me. I'm being her lawyer here.
Either or.
But we all love Honey Bunch anyway.
Great.
Oh, Michelle,
that's good to know.
Kidding. But your father was eternally late. Oh, there's one story. We were late for a doctor's appointment with your father, and he was very nervous about the appointment, and it really wasn't anything to be so nervous about. But you remember how he'd get nervous, and he'd fidget, and he'd drop things and everything. Well, we were called into the doctor's office, and we were talking and everything, and your father brought out a bottle of his pills to show to the doctor, and he said, "Oh, well, sir, I only take this much," and he opened it, but it was like an explosion, and the pills went all over the doctor's desk and all over the floor. And I said, David, I'll help you. Because he's saying, oh, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I must have opened it the wrong way. And so the pills were just all over the doctor's desk. So I'm there. I said, you talk to the doctor. I'll pick up the pills. So I picked up about 100 pills, and so that visit was over. Not so quickly, but it was fine.
Great.
But he was funny. He was a very.
It was very funny. The one time I remember his saying, "I'll be there in just a moment. I'm just around the corner. I'm just around the corner." And 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, 5 or 6 hours later, he arrives in the middle of the night, and he says, "Well," he says, I just wanted some of that soup up in Lancaster," and I suddenly thought, well, gee, all I have to do is just go this way, and I turned towards Lancaster, and I went up to get that Vietnamese soup. He said, boy, it was good. It was good.
Oh,
That's just around the corner.
Right.
I had this, I developed, a kind of understanding, and even though I thought it was rather humorous, I developed this understanding that there's no reason I should hold my breath till your father arrives.
Oh, no, he would never arrive around the time he would say. You could figure on about 3 or 4 hours later.
Or 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not, that is a sign of, it's just a sign of ADD. Something would come to mind and he couldn't remember. He couldn't remember what he told you, It was just something would come to mind and he'd do that. And, there was no restriction. I was not going to give him demerits or anything. I was not going to, there were no demerits involved. It was all,
Well, maybe he thought, since I'm right here 6 hours away, I might as well stop in.
Well, you know what? I got a little tired of waiting at the door for him, An hour passed,
Why do
and
you
I was
wait at the
beginning
door?
to lean against the wall, and then I thought, he'll be coming in any minute.
Doesn't he have a key?
Then I was leaning against the window, and I thought, go sit down. And then about 2 hours later, he came in. So I thought I never
with his own key.
He had no sense of time. My father was the same way. My father he would overcompensate often, I remember, I've told you this before, he'd be getting up in the middle of the night and dressing for his 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
They were going to come and pick him up and take him to a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I had to try to convince him that was now about 6-7 hours away,
Oh, well, yes, I remember your father sitting at the edge of the bed all dressed, and he didn't have to leave for another 2 hours.
Yeah,
well,
it was
worked.
overcompensating because his sense of time was not very good. And one time they called me from the home in Charter House, it was called, and they said, your father's sitting in the dining room, and he's insisting that breakfast is to be served. And I had to go over there, and I went over there. This is after I'd had to put him in a home, and I went over there, and I one thing I did not want to do was humiliate him. So I just sat there next to him, and I said, Dad, you realize that no one is coming in for breakfast right now. Mm-hmm. It's midnight, and you're not serving breakfast for quite a bit of time. And just little by little, he kind of he agreed to go back to his room. But I wanted to be careful because one thing I did not want to do was humiliate him.
No,
right?
And I
did. Yes.
And I was very much aware of that.
Right.
And
I know.
One time
investigated before, and yes, it is not fun.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
But
on that
But
note,
my brother David had there was no time, when he was so late and had these ideas, go to somewhere else and all that. Remember that coming to my house was optional. There was no restriction. There's no restriction or anything. All I ask is that when he arrived, that he try not to speak with a loud voice until he was inside the house. That was a little hard to get him to do. But,
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Oh, well, well, I hope.
But he was a wonderful person, and God, I miss him. He was a wonderful brother.
Yeah.
But I do want to remind you that I'm the one that ruined him, because he could always convince me. He could always finally convince me, and I'd have fun around him.
Yes.
I mean, when he climbed the mountain, and I thought I was going to die, and he climbed the mountain. My brother took such good care of me.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was slipping down the rocks, and he grabbed me. He found a way of getting me up.
Yep.
And,
he was always there for us.
Right.
So,
you lived to tell about it.
Yeah.
Good.
He was my rock, and I shouldn't have gotten mad at him like I did, but I hope the children
it's
are
kind of hard to live with it. It's kind of hard to live with that, dear.
Sometimes.
So some of us understand, even though we understand what it's like.
Yeah, he was very, very good, and I'm glad the children had him for a father too.
Yes, we are too. And
he was
on that note,
very, very funny. Oh
yes.
On that note, what do we say?
We should sign off now. Uncle Steve, do you want to do the outro in soliloquy form?
Au revoir, mes chers amis, mes compagnons dans le sentier de la vie.
Oh.
Au revoir, demain dès l'aube, à l'heure où blanchit la campagne, je partirai. Vois-tu, je sais que tu m'attends.
And for our
J'irai par la
English
forêt,
friends.
j'irai par la montagne. Je ne puis demeurer sans de... Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, great. Would you like to translate?
Well, I went into a poem of Victor Hugo, which then I started fumbling on. So let's not worry about too much. But
okay.
No, I just said, till we meet again. Au revoir means it's goodbye, or till we meet again. My dear companions in the sentier, in the path of life.
Oh boy.
Thank you.
Got it.
You.
All right. Thank you.
And take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Stay well.
Okay.
All that. Yes.
And happy Papa's birthday.
That's right.
Or not using Papa. Papa was grandfather.
Right.
Happy birthday.
You called him the geezer. Michelle, remember you called him the old geezer.
I don't think so.
No. He's still Dad.
No.
Wasn't that a joke? As he told me. Michelle likes to call me the geezer.
Yeah, that's one of those details he may have gotten wrong.
Oh, really? I never heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm sorry. I probably got it wrong. You can tell me later.
That's all right.
Well, I'm glad that was corrected, because I don't ever remember that.
I thought that they had these kind of appellations that they called each other and all.
I'm sure we had nicknames. Anywho.
Dolly is good.
All right. Well,
but anyway,
take
care, everybody.
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Steve.
Goodbye, and goodbye, Mama's honey bunch.
Oh, yes.
Bye, honey.
Oh, goodbye.
Bye,
goodbye.
Steve.
Oh, don't hang up quite yet, Mom.
Okay, goodbye. I'll let go. Okay, I go.
One at a time.
Bye, Steve.
Bye.
What do I do?
You could do the outro.
What's that?
Thank you for listening to On the Line with Babsie or something.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to On the Line with Babsie. And stay well, stay safe, stay healthy.
Great. And if you want to reach us, you can reach us at Shell on Earth on Instagram for now. Someday we'll have a website. Mom, you want to set up a website?
I don't know.
Forget it. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Whatever you say. Whatever you say. I'm not too good.
I know. Okay. Goodbye.
Okay. All right. Thank you all to Tim and to you.
Okay. Bye.
I'm afraid we kept you too long.
Yeah, we did, and we're doing it some more.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.